Welcome to God is Infinite and Eternal from Divine Providence by Emanuel Swedenborg, Vegetarian, Part 2 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. In the 18th century, a great Swedish scientist and inventor, at the height of his career, began to see visions of heaven, spirits, saints, and angels. He saw Lord Jesus, vegetarian, come to open his inner eye, which allowed him to travel in the celestial sphere and talk with different spiritual beings. This mystical experience transformed the scientist into an enlightened spiritual leader with a new understanding of Christianity. His name is Emanuel Swedenborg, vegetarian. From 1744 onwards, Emanuel Swedenborg spent over a decade writing down what he saw in his spiritual voyages in more than 24 books. His visions of heaven and the afterlife, his realization that God is love, and his discovery of the Holy Bible's deeper meanings are just some of the revolutionary topics he bravely documented. The life and works of this remarkable spiritual world explorer inspire people to this day. Let us continue with selections from Divine Providence, where Emanuel Swedenborg, vegetarian, elaborates on the infinity and eternity of the Lord and how we comprehend ourselves as His creations. In all that it does, the Lord's divine providence looks to what is infinite and eternal. The infinite and eternal in itself is the same as the divine. Angels and spirits are affections of love and thoughts, thence they are not in space or time, but only in an appearance of them. Space and time appear to them in keeping with the states of their affections and their thoughts thence. When one of them, therefore, thinks with affection of another, intently desiring to see or speak with him, the other is at once present. Hence, too, present with every person is spirit who is in an affection like evil spirit with a person in an affection of similar evil, and good spirit with a person in an affection of similar good. They are as fully present as though the person was one of their society. Space and time have nothing to do with their presence, for affection and thought therefrom are not in space and time, and spirits and angels are affections and thoughts therefrom. I have been given to know this by living experience over many years, for I have spoken with many on their death, some in different kingdoms of Europe, and some in different kingdoms of Asia and Africa, and all were near me. If space and time existed for them, a journey and time to make it would have intervened. From these considerations, it may now be plain that the infinite and eternal, thus the Lord, are to be thought of apart from space and time, and can be so thought of, plain likewise, that they are so thought of by those who think interiorly and rationally, and plain that the infinite and eternal are identical with the divine. So think angels and spirits. In thought withdrawn from space and time, divine omnipresence is comprehended, and divine omnipotence, also the divine from eternity, but these are not at all grasped by thought, to which an idea of space and time adheres. Plain it is, then, that one can conceive of God from eternity, but never of nature from eternity. So one can think of the creation of the world by God, but never of its creation from nature, for space and time are proper to nature, but the divine is apart from them. What is infinite and eternal in itself cannot but look to what is infinite and eternal from itself in finite things. By what is infinite and eternal in itself, the divine itself is meant. By finite things are meant all things created by the Lord, especially people, spirits, and angels. By looking to the infinite and eternal from itself is meant to look to the divine, that is, to himself, in these as a person beholds his image in a mirror. In the created universe, there is an image of the human being, and that this is an image of the infinite and eternal, that is, of God the Creator, namely the Lord from eternity. But be it known that the divine in itself is in the Lord, whereas the divine from itself is the divine from the Lord in things created. Divine providence looks to the infinite and eternal from itself in all that it does, especially in saving humankind. The infinite and eternal in itself is the divine itself, or the Lord in himself. The infinite and eternal from itself is the preceding divine, or the Lord in others created by him, thus in people and angels. This divine is identical with divine providence, for by the divine from himself, the Lord provides that all things shall be held together in the order in which and into which they were created. This the divine in the act of proceeding accomplishes, and consequently, all this is divine providence. That divine providence in all that it does looks to what is infinite and eternal from itself is evident from the fact that every created thing proceeds from a first, which is the infinite and eternal. But the first whence anything is in mostly in all the progression, and therefore the preceding divine or divine providence in all that it does have in view some image of the infinite and eternal. It does so in all things, in some obviously, so that it is perceptible, in others not. It makes that image evident to perception in the variety and in the fructification and multiplication of all things. The like is true of human beings as to their affections, which are of love, and their perceptions, which are of wisdom. The variety of either is infinite and eternal. So too is their fructification and multiplication, which is spiritual. No person enjoys affection and perception so like another's as to be identical with it, nor ever will. Affections, moreover, may be fructified, and perceptions multiplied without end. Knowledge, it is well known, is inexhaustible. This capacity of fructification and multiplication without end or to infinity and eternity exists in natural things, with men in spiritual with the spiritual angels, and in celestial with the celestial angels. Affections, perceptions, and knowledges have this endless capacity not only in general, but in every least particular. They have it because they exist from the infinite and eternal in itself, through what is infinite and eternal from itself. But as the finite has in it nothing of the divine, nothing of the kind, not the least, is in the human being as their own. Human or angel is finite, and only a receptacle by itself dead. Whatever is living in them is from the preceding divine, joined to them by contact, and appearing in them as if it were his. For more information, please visit sacred-texts.com.